Nope. Friends, we are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Herbert B. Nechin. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome friends via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you for attending. And services will be conducted by Rabbi Andrea London of Beth Emmet, the Free Synagogue in Evanston.
It feels strange to stand here and be called Rabbi Andrea London as I officiate at the funeral service for my dear Uncle Herb, the end of an era for the Nechin side of our family, the last relative alive that knew me since I was born, and now he is gone. And I always begin the service with these words, and they're hitting me very differently at this moment, and I'll share this psalm. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini ba'alamot, lechen samach libi ve'egel kivodi, upper bisar yishkon levetach. The psalmist taught, I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. When we say that God is at our side, we often experience God's presence in our loved ones who are there for us always, to comfort us, to support us, to cheer us on. In one's life, we are lucky if our parents play those roles for us. And if we're extraordinarily lucky, like I am, you have an uncle who is also there by your side at graduations, at weddings, at brisses, cheering me on, loving and supporting. For that was who Herb Nechin was. A person who was very compassionate, the consummate mensch, and everybody sitting here can nod their heads saying, yep, when we think of Herb, that is the one word we would say to describe him. And so we gather together at this time to pay tribute and to express our love for this dear human being that graced all of our lives and gave us so much love and support on the way. Adonai mi agorbo alecha mishkon bahar kochecha olech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo. O eternal God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes, those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Those who are upright, who do justly and speak the truth within their hearts. The psalmist taught that this is a person who lives a good, holy, and complete life, and this is the life that my dear Uncle Herb led for 89 and a half years. L'kol zman ve'et l'kol chefetz tachat hashamayim et laledet ve'et lamut, et lata'at ve'et la'kor natua, et livchot ve'et livnot, et livkot ve'et lizchok, et sfod ve'et rakod. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we learn, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. We now take these precious moments together to speak about the life and the love and the legacy of Herb Nechin. As we begin our reflections, I'd like to invite my cousins Jill and her daughter Alex to speak.
funny thing, I've been preparing this for a long time, and everything I'm going to say today, actually, Herb has already heard, because we just talked about everything. Alex is here. We have, we're a little unconventional, and following in Herb's footsteps, we're going to have a little humor and some visual aids to help convey our message. Okay. Herbert, Herb, Herbie, Uncle H, Papa Herb. And he always hated his name. First, I just want to say how grateful I am. Because I cannot begin to tell you. I get it, who all of you are, who all of you have been to him and the rest of us, and Roberta, and all my relatives, and everybody. They didn't just have casual acquaintances, they had really good friends. And you're our chosen family. So, I just want you to know that. And one of our chosen family will always be my adopted younger brother. My dear brother Lloyd, who was Herb's best friend and buddy, who took him on all their adventures and all those Facebook pictures. That was the two of them. Out having a good time, proving that being in hospice could just be one big adventure for 2 years. I think Herb might have won the prize for being in hospice the longest. He beat Jimmy Carter, he outlived the Pope. Okay, so, in no particular order, he always described himself as a feminist. He was a lifelong Democrat. He was pro-choice. He believed in civil rights for all. He deeply understood the impact of redlining and racism and what it took for Obama to get to Harvard Law School and beyond. He was a really smart guy. He taught us a lot about history and politics and how important it was to vote. Here are some of the words that I've heard people describe him. Oh, he was so handsome, especially when he was young. Intellectual, empathic, funny, playful, expressive, and resilient. He was a great storyteller. He could provide the perfect delivery of very long jokes. Over and over. And as my friends and my colleagues can attest to, you ask a Nechin a quick question and you will get a very long answer. But that's the thing about genes. Thanks, Mom and Dad. The depression and curly hair gene, got that too. Herb never felt like he was good enough. Northwestern University, Harvard Law School, yet he didn't feel like he belonged there somehow. That is his Northwestern wild card. Hold it up. Get his, and then there are certain things also. When he was at Northwestern, Herb was an excellent dancer. He and his partner won first place in the Charleston contests. We have proof. Herb was extremely fashionable, as you all know. We still have his Marshall Field's credit card. Yep. Herb was in the Army Reserves from 1961 to 65. Our dear, dashingly well-dressed Herb told me stories about how he crawled on his belly under barbed wire carrying a rifle. Wow. And here are the dog tags to prove that, where he, being the macho guy that he was, became a clerk typist in the Army. Yes. And a couple of the last things, as I said, not in any particular order. The bow tie. The bow tie. Herb loved wearing bow ties. He actually knew how to tie them. This is not the kind you tie, but this was a very special bow tie that he wore to his nephew, Julian and Chelsea's wedding. And that is the picture that is on his program. So that's his very special bow tie. And the last visual aid is most of you in this room had enjoyed a holiday or a dinner or 28 at Herb and Roberta's house at 399 Fullerton, and you all know that dinner did not begin until Herb rang the dinner bell. Okay. So, there was one thing consistent about Herb. Every single time he saw us, hello, sweetie pie. Every single time. Up until last week when he barely had anything to say. Hello, sweetie pie. And he told you he loved you every single time. Great values, that man, his work ethic. I think he strongly encouraged me to get my first job when I was about 15. And as you all know, he worked until he was 80. God forbid. Hi, I'm your hospital social worker. Here's my rollator and my caregiver. Ugh. But anyway, just kidding, honey. So one of his talents, truly, was the fact that he showed up. He always showed up. He showed up for his family's everythings, his friends' everythings. He threw parties for everything. He performed weddings. He just showed up. Every wedding, every funeral, every whatever it was, he showed up. And he taught me how important it is to show up. One of his gifts, and I highly recommend that all of you really take this to heart. Make things right with your parents and your kids. He was incredibly generous with his listening. He and I had a lot of healing to do, a lot of history to make up for. We had a lot of repairs. And I would call him. Most of this took place when I was in social work school, and much to my parents' chagrin, also in a lot of therapy every week for 2 years. Oh God, they were really worried at that point. What now? And I would call him at the office frequently, and no matter how busy he was, he would close his door, and he would listen, and he'd reflect, and we would talk. And we made sure that at the end we said everything there was to say. He used to love to tell me about the day I was born, July 27th, 19-something, at Michael Reese Hospital. Back in those days, the fathers had to stay in the waiting room. I'm sure it was a smoking lounge, too. And he said, "This is what you did. The nurse brought you out, and you said, 'Hiya, Papa.'" He did not, Dad. Seriously? But that's what he said. He and my mom, Susan Zimmerman, they met at some young Jewish singles dance or something in about 1963. And my father was a very good dancer, as we've already established, and that's how they met. They got married a year later, and then their only child was born 2 years later. Unfortunately, they didn't stay married for very long. I guess it was about 7 years. But he always told me how much he loved and admired and respected my mom. And that was really amazing. My mom first got diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 38. He and Roberta were already married, and he would call and check on her and see if she was okay. Yeah, he showed up. It recurred when she was 50, and for the last time at 62. She lived in California. And at one point, when I called him and told him we might be nearing the end, he got on a plane by himself and flew to San Diego because he wanted to say goodbye. So after all those years, and in typical form of my parents, he showed up and she was sitting on the couch reading a book. "Hi, Herbie. Nice to see you." He's like, "I thought you were dying." She's like, "Not today." So they had a nice talk and they had lunch, and I went out to walk the dog and I came back and they were sitting there laughing. I don't know what they were talking about. So when my mom died, you see, she didn't believe in organized religion, burial, any of this stuff. And as my Aunt Randy, who's here, helped me organize this little memorial gathering, I hardly remember. The other part of it, the worst part of it. She died on December 8th, 2004, which was my Aunt Arlene's birthday. I don't believe in coincidence. The last thing my mother said to me is, "You will be okay because you have your Aunt Arlene." I was 5 months pregnant when she died. So Alex was going through pictures last night and she found a note. And I said, "I've never seen this before. I don't remember it." And apparently it was a note that Herb had written and sent to Mom's memorial gathering. Written by Herb Nechin, Jill's father. "Susan was the most courageous and determined person I ever knew. Right up there with Grandma Zelda. She was unconditionally committed to Jill and Gotti," that's Alex's dad, "her mother Janet, her family, friends, and the arts." It's one thing they had in common. My mother was a very gifted artist and writer, and she didn't collect all that stuff that Herb and Roberta did, but she appreciated it. She was always, quote, "just fine." I never heard her complain. She told Jill, "Don't worry, go on with your life. Besides, the best revenge is to have a great life." She loved life and was loved in return. In the end, her friends came to visit her, sent letters, they called. In one of our last phone conversations, she described how Jill was decorating her room with cards and pictures. She was so proud and happy she was going to be a grandmother. I know Susan and Burdock are with us now. Burdock was my mom's devoted rescue dog who literally crossed the Rainbow Bridge first so he could be waiting for Mom. Promise to remember Susan and to talk about her spirit and her smiles, so she can always be here in our lives, so we too can be just fine. My maternal grandmother lived another 5 years, till the age of 100. She loved Herb too. So, fast forward, there's a lot that happened in between everything, but I do need to acknowledge the last 5 years, which was Herb's finale. When Roberta died, they had that nice condo at 3180 Lakeshore Drive, which he said, "I don't want to live here anymore. I want to sell it. I want to live near the family, somewhere near Evanston and Wilmette." I drove him some places. I said, "It's up to you, Pops. You pick the place." He chose the Carrington in Lincolnwood, which truthfully they should now rename Herb's Place. Yeah. His dear sister Arlene lived in the memory care downstairs a couple years later so they could be together and they could see each other often, which they did. So for the first 3 years, he lived in the Independent Building. He was making friends. He was having fun. Yes, he and I even danced once at a New Year's Eve party. That was pretty funny. Then he had a fall. He fell. He didn't hurt himself, but I don't know. He ended up spending 2 weeks on the acute rehab floor at Resurrection, where I worked at the time during the pandemic. He was a fun patient. My coworkers actually enjoyed taking care of him, except for the time that the nurse insisted that he keep the bed railing up. And he said, "This bed rail is infringing on my civil rights." The nurse just shook his head and said, "Herb, call, don't fall. Lawyers." And he just walked out of the room. Imagine. Parkinson's is a physically painless disease, but it steals your personality, your expression, your voice, the best parts of Herb. That was hard. It was truly a gift and an honor to take care of him. It was another full-time job, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm glad I got to do it, because we kept our promises. He made me promise never go back to the hospital. I'm a DNR, and when I'm babbling nonsense, you come and visit me. And when he started to babble nonsense, we were there. And we used to put Stefan or Alex or whomever on the phone. And back when he was a little more with it, "Hi, sweetie pie." So, Pops, here's the big finish. You did it exactly the way you were supposed to. We told you every single time you looked tired and when you had had enough. We said, "Pops, when you're ready, do your favorite thing. You just take a good long afternoon nap and don't wake up." And that's exactly what he did on Monday. And I got a "I love you" and a "hello, sweetie pie" on Sunday. So there's a lot more, but I don't know. We'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Stefan to speak.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for being here, celebrating Herb's life and hearing all these great stories and things about Dad. He's just a terrific man. I was 12 or 13 years old when he entered my life, and he turned my life not upside down, downside up. I was living just with my mom. We were having our lives, but it wasn't like having the family that he brought into my life. He brought a sister who I love very much. He was my dad. I didn't have a dad, and he filled that tremendously large void, and very well, by the way, with a lot of love and a lot of support and unconditional love, which I hadn't learned from my Fishman family, but I did learn from the Nechin family, which was nice. He brought cousins and aunts and uncles, people my age. I was the only one in my generation at the time, and there were no kids that I played with or hung out with. And then we go to Highland Park, and the next thing I know, Jill and I are in a play, and we're playing Herb and Roberta getting married on the first time we met the Kustin family. Now, the director she was a tough director, but she was fair, and she became a wonderful rabbi. So let's just say she was in a position to take care of things, which was lovely. But there's things about Dad that a lot of people didn't know. First of all, and this isn't to brag, but I was among the fastest kids at Latin school, and I was on track and played soccer and everything else. So I'm out with Dad in the park. I was 14, and he said, let's race. And I said, come on, Dad, please. And he blew past me like a lightning streak. And I'll tell you, ever since then, I realized, maybe he's the athletic one in the family. So I was pretty excited by that. Jill mentioned that, he was a clerk typist. His favorite expression when he was in the Army, when he wrote for Stars and Stripes, by the way, was never retreat, backspace. That was his. It's true. It's true. It's true. We come here and we talk about my dad, and, he was beyond special. He worked very hard to take care of my mother and myself. He stayed very close with Jill, and we all had a really nice relationship together. At least, there were times when we were all together and went to do, especially in the beginning, we would go to like carnivals and fairs and all kinds of stuff. They were just trying to get Jill and I acclimated to each other, but it was a lot of cotton candy, I can tell you that. But it was sweet, and he made such a big effort. But he worked so hard, and he was so loving, and he was so supportive. There was a time when I had braces. I know it's hard to believe that. And I'd wear a night brace, and you'd have to put it on, and I would always never put it on. And he would come into my room, like literally, like with his feet pounding on the ground. Where's the night brace? And then he would tell me a night brace story, just to make me feel better about it, because it was painful and awkward and awful. But every night, it wasn't like he let up. Like, oh, I'll let Stefan get away with it this night. I mean, he let me get away with a lot, but that was not one of the things he did. I remember the only time he was very stern is I was in high school with friends of mine, one of which is here today, Mike Nateras, and we were out all night. And I didn't know that it was going to be a big deal till I got home and found out from our doorman that your dad's upstairs and he's super pissed. And I came upstairs and he went, look, you little jerk, we thought you were dead. So next time, let us know if you're going to stay out all night, and that it's okay. Because he was loving and he was generous and he was fine with those things. But he was scared. And that's when I realized, I think I was 14 or 15, this guy really loves me. I mean, you could see the passion, because I knew he did. But to show that love and passion at that moment where he really did not know where I was and if I was okay. And he expressed his love for me and my wife and my children, never-ending love for them. And for my friends, too. He was very loving to all of my friends. I remember I had nobody here remembers this, but we had the coho salmon dinner at my house. I caught some cohos in the lake, and he and Roberta filleted them up, I think, and then had all my friends there for this very fancy coho dinner that ended up becoming like the lore at Latin school. Who wasn't invited to the coho dinner is not cool. Absolutely true, absolutely true. But boy, I really love my dad, and he changed my life. He literally brought something into my life that I didn't know I was missing until he filled that void. And I know they met at a polling place, I think 4 years prior to me actually meeting Herb. And then my mom said I ran into a friend from I met during the I think McGovern Shriver, believe it or not. That's how old I am. And then Roberta brought him home and said, hey, you need to meet him. He's wonderful. And then I knew. You can just tell when you meet somebody. It's not just a vibe. It's a whole thing. And you could just know with Herb that he was very special. And then my mom really liked him already and soon to be loved him. But he just took me in as his son without a blink of an eye. It wasn't like, call me stepdad, call me Herb. I called him dad right away because he was my dad right away. That's the kind of heart he had. the kind of love he had as a man, it changed my life in so many good ways. He brought so many people into our lives, family and friends, and all those parties Jill was referring to. I mean, it was never ending. I mean, I had to hide in my room many, many nights because there were just one party after another, but it was always a celebration of something, always taking care of somebody in the family. It was this person's graduation, or this person got an award, or whatever it was, let's have a party. And Herb loved it. He would go into the big pantry and pull out all the plates and set the table, and Jill brought the bell. I forgot the bell, so that's great. But I'll just say one last thing, that not only was he a wonderful father and a wonderful father-in-law, but an amazing, amazing grandfather. And he even got to meet his great-grandchildren very recently. And I think it was the most beautiful picture I've ever seen of him. My son Julian, who's here, and my wife Michelle, of course, we've been together for 30 years now. And it was unwavering with his love and his devotion and his support. No matter what situation I had, whether I was in Michigan at the house we used to rent in the summer, and we had fireworks that my friend Billy Egan and I came to stop at a fireworks place. And then Bill Egan and Jill Egan, who, by the way, I've known most of my life, and I love them very much, and thank you for being here. We set off a firework that we didn't know it was so big. We didn't know. What do we know about fireworks? We set this firework off. It went up like you're in downtown Chicago. I'm not exaggerating. This lady there starts screaming at Bill and I because our kid was, 20 feet away. We didn't know. It was a very big, professional firework. It goes up into the sky, it explodes. The whole beach stopped and looked at Bill and I and went like that. So Bill and I hightail it out, right? And we're running with the cart with all the rest of the fireworks because we didn't. So running back, and the kids, and we're running back to the room. And Bill just reminded me of the story that he came into the house and he shut the door and he shut the drapes and he looked at Bill and I and said, well, I don't know what's going on, but if I were her, I'd call the cops. And I said, well, I do have my attorney here, so that's good. But he was just that guy. He took everything in stride. I mean, there was nothing that, he was unflappable, is I think the word that means the most. And even though I'm going a little long, I just want to say to everybody, thank you very much. We love you all very much. Thank you for being here. Lloyd, you were just amazing. Jill, I have to give you special recognition for being terrific. We moved, obviously, to Arizona. It wasn't as easy for us to be here. We came when we could, but Jill was I don't know what the female word of mensch is, but Jill definitely what is it? Okay, anyway, I'm sure Andrea knows. Okay, but we love you all very much, and thank you all for being here, and I want you to know, Dad, that you changed my life, and I love you very much, and thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So many beautiful stories and memories, and I know that everybody sitting here has many more in their heart as I do. Herb did not have the easiest life as a child. I want to go back a few years. He and my mother were born here in Chicago, but lived in many places because my grandfather, who was a structural engineer, had trouble making a living after the Depression, or during the Depression, and even after. And so they lived here, and they lived in Cleveland, they lived in California for a while, and then moved back. And finally, when things began to settle down and they were able to buy a house in Winnetka, my grandfather dropped dead of a heart attack. And my mom and my Uncle Herb were just teenagers, and it was a very difficult time for them. And they had to move in with their two aunts, who were not the nicest people, as we heard many stories as children growing up about their aunts. And Herb had to sleep on the sofa in the living room during his high school years. And because of that, he and my mother developed a very strong and special bond with each other. I don't think I've ever seen a brother and sister who are so close. When it came time to move my mother into a memory care unit, my dad said, well, should we look around? And I said, no, we're going to move her to the Carrington because she needs to be near Herb. And everybody in the family understood that in order for them to be together, because Herb had Parkinson's and wasn't going to be able to get out, they needed to be in the same place. And it was the best decision we made. And Lloyd, you were so wonderful. You'd bring Herb down to Mom's room, and you and Jenny would take them outside and allow them to be together. And he would always say, as we've heard, everybody was sweetie pie, but my mother, he would say, look at my beautiful sister, always, until the day she died. And the day she died, Erev Yom Kippur last fall, he was sitting in her room holding her hand all afternoon. He liked to hold hands. That was a way he showed his love and concern, and holding my mom's hand and taking care of his baby sister as he saw her. But in high school, he was very successful. As we heard about his being a writer when he was in the Army, he also had a column in the Sullivan newspaper called Kvetchin with Nechin. I loved that name, and I didn't realize that my cousins didn't even know about that, but my mother used to tell me about that column before he went off to Northwestern, and then, of course, to Harvard after that. And Herb, as we've heard, was somebody who showed up for everything. I can see him there at my events and graduations, and he was the person who introduced Danny and me to the rabbi who would marry us. He said, I know the perfect rabbi for you, and we'll have a dinner party for you and invite them. And everybody who's here remembers those infamous dinner parties. And that's where we met Rabbi Joseph Edelheit. He was very proud, Herb, of being affiliated with Emmanuel and was president of the congregation. He wasn't religious in a typical way of being that interested in Jewish ritual practices, but he loved being Jewish and he loved being part of the people and was very proud that I was a rabbi and always loved and supported me in those endeavors, as he loved and supported everybody in their endeavors as well. When we were little, my brother and sister and I have very fond memories of when he would come over and babysit, and Jill and sometimes Stefan would sleep over as well. And we would be upstairs making a racket. He'd come upstairs and tell us to go to bed, and we would go to bed or pretend to go to bed, and Herb would go downstairs, and then we'd sneak out of bed, not so quietly, and continue to play games and run around and sound like elephants upstairs. And then he would run upstairs to tell us that we needed to go to bed, and we'd pretend like we were sleeping. And he never yelled at us. And he used to play along and would say, oh, I guess they're in bed and sleeping. That mensch of a man who was unflappable, as Stefan said, was always the uncle that we knew. And being a dapper dresser was important to him as well, taking my husband Danny shopping, of course, at Brooks Brothers for a suit for our wedding. I can't believe we didn't mention Brooks Brothers yet. Life without Brooks Brothers would have been impossible. He must have had a Brooks Brothers credit card as well. You found that one too. Stefan remembers her visiting in college and going out and buying Brooks Brothers shirts for him. And their antiquing was legendary, and being in their house on 399 Fullerton with floor-to-ceiling paintings and every ledge that had some, as my father would call it, a tchotchke on it. But they were very beautiful things. And when they downsized, we thought, where are they going to put all of that art? But somehow they managed to do that. And all of that art, which was an expression of their personality. And they taught us how to go shopping at the Kane County Antique Fair so that we know how to pick out things. We still have a trunk and a barrel, and Herb and Roberta would compliment us if we picked out just the right thing and got the right price for it as well.
Most of it's in the storage locker.
Most of it's in the storage locker. So as we gather today, there's so much warmth and fondness that all of us have in our hearts of a loving, caring man who was there for all of us. As we gather together to say goodbye, we know that the most important thing that Herb would have wanted and the legacy that he leaves for all of us is that we continue to show up and be there and love each other. And so to my dear cousins, Jill and Stefan, we'll be there for you as Herb was there for all of us. And to all of the grandkids, to Alex and Julian who are here today, and to Sophie and Sebastian who couldn't be here but loved their Papa Herb. And to Jude and Gianna, also the great-grandchildren. I remember how excited Herb was that he had great-grandchildren in his life. And that visit, Julian, was so incredibly, incredibly important. And to Michelle, his dear daughter-in-law, and to all of us who are here, my siblings, Charles and Liz, our spouses, our children. We all have amazing memories of Uncle Herb. His memory is a blessing, as his life blessed and touched all of us. I'd now like to invite Jill's good friend, Laura, who's going to play a piece for us on the harp in memory of Herb.
I'm so moved to be here as we're hearing about Jill's wonderful father. I'm just so moved by the fact that Jill sought me out to be her BFF, and the generosity of spirit that we're hearing about from your dad, always showing up, always being there for each other, always celebrating. Is so you, Jill, and it's such an honor to be here and to share Herb's favorite song, which is Somewhere Over the Rainbow, with all of you.
as we spoke about yesterday when we got together as a family, and somewhere over the rainbow, he's embracing my mom, Arlene, fighting with my father for sure, and preparing a wonderful spread with Roberta, and inviting everybody over to their home. God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is a dwelling place of your love and glory. Please take a moment now to offer in your hearts a silent prayer for Herb and for his family. Please rise as you are able for the memorial prayer. El malay rachamim shochen bam romim ham se menuchan khonatach ar kanfe shchina im kedushim toring bezoarakel mazirim et nishmat ben Zion chaim ben Avraham v'Zelda shalach olamo Baal harachamim yasireh b'tzeter kanfav leolamim v'tzor b'tzor chaim et nishmato Adonai hu nacharato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Ben Zion Chaim ben Avraham Zelda, to Herbert Nechin, son of Abraham and Zelda, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
This does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family will be receiving condolence calls at Elizabeth Kuston's home, 730 11th Street in Wilmette. That'll be immediately following the burial today until 5, and then tomorrow from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. And there's parking in the Burmeister lot or on the street. That information is on our website as well as the folders that you have. So if you didn't get a folder when you entered, please get one when you leave. Interment will take place at Memorial Park Cemetery, 9900 Grosse Point Road in Skokie. The procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield. And we'll also attach a flag to the roof of your car. And please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, please come forward. Lloyd Gambumpa, Aidan Rabinowitz, John Afinitu, Kirk Huppengarner, Julian Ehrenfeld, and Danny London. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the family, the rabbi, and Mr. Nechin are escorted from the chapel.